Friends, gather around, because you are not going to believe this one. Remember Alcatraz? The infamous island prison that even Clint Eastwood busted out of? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because your favorite president, and by that I mean the one who thinks healthcare is a board game, wants to reopen it. Yes, you heard that right. Trump, in all his infinite wisdom, thinks the best use of a crumbling, iconic landmark is to stuff it full of criminals again. Now you might be thinking, John, what possible reason could he have for this? And to that I say, my friend, you're asking the wrong comedian. This is the same guy who thought windmills cause cancer. But in his own words, it's about law, order and justice. You know, because nothing screams justice like a prison that's literally sinking into the bay. It's like he saw an episode of Lock Up and thought, now that's what I call a vacation spot. The man's logic is about as watertight as a screen door on a submarine. I mean, we're talking about a place that was 3 times more expensive to run than other prisons. 3 times! You could buy a lot of hamburgers with that kind of money. But why bother with logic when you can appeal to fear, right? This whole thing reeks of desperation, a last-ditch attempt to look tough on crime before he inevitably gets replaced by a robot programmed to only say infrastructure and bipartisanship. But hey, at least it's entertaining, right? In a watching a car crash in slow motion kind of way. So, for those of you who skipped history class to watch The Shawshank Redemption for the 100th time, no judgment, I've been there, let's take a little trip down memory lane, shall we? Alcatraz, or The Rock as the cool kids call it, has a history that's more colourful than a bag of Skittles. It started life as a humble military fort, protecting San Francisco Bay from all those pesky Confederates who wanted to steal their sourdough bread recipe. Then, because nothing says rehabilitation like a giant rock in the middle of freezing cold water, it became a military prison. But the real fun began in 1934, when Alcatraz was upgraded to a maximum security, minimum privilege federal penitentiary. This wasn't your average run-of-the-mill slammer, folks. This was the big leagues, the all-star game of incarceration. If you robbed a bank with a spork, you went to county. If you robbed a bank with a tank, you went to Alcatraz, and boy, did they have some guests. We're talking about the creme de la creme of the criminal underworld: Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, James Whitey Bulger. The list reads like a who's who of people you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. The place was designed to break even the most hardened criminals. No talking, no personal belongings, and the constant threat of being thrown in the hole. A special cell that was basically a concrete box. It was enough to make even the toughest mobster wish he'd just paid his taxes. Okay, so now that we've had our history lesson, let's talk turkey, folks. Could Trump actually reopen Alcatraz? Short answer, probably not. Long answer, no. First of all, there's the small matter of it being a national historic landmark. That's not like getting a participation trophy, folks. It means something. It means the government recognizes its historical significance and wants to preserve it. Now, I know what you're thinking, but John, this is Trump we're talking about. He probably thinks the National Historic Landmark is a new golf course he wants to build. And to that I say, fair point. But even he can't just snap his fingers and turn a tourist attraction back into a prison. There are laws, regulations, and probably a strongly worded letter from the Sierra Club to contend with. Then there's the issue of money. Remember how I said it was expensive to run? Well, it's even more expensive to renovate. We're talking millions, maybe billions of dollars. And something tells me that Congress, even the ones who still think Trump is the second coming of Reagan, aren't going to be too keen on forking over that kind of cash to fund one of his harebrained schemes. But even if, by some miracle, he managed to pull it off, there's the small matter of logistics. Where are you going to put the prisoners? How are you going to get them there? What are you going to do with all the tourists? I'm sure the ferry ride narration would be interesting. And on your left, you'll see a group of hardened criminals enjoying their daily exercise. Please do not feed the inmates. Look, I know it's easy to get caught up in the absurdity of it all. Believe me, I do it for a living. But at the end of the day, this is just another distraction, another shiny object to keep us from focusing on the real issues. While we're busy debating whether or not Alcatraz should be a prison again, there are children in cages, the climate is melting faster than a popsicle in a sauna, and our democracy is hanging by a thread. So the next time you hear someone talking about Trump's plan to reopen Alcatraz, do me a favor, will you? Just smile, nod, and then gently steer the conversation towards something that actually matters. Because if we're not careful, we're all going to end up doing time in the prison of our own making. And trust me, folks, that's one escape even Clint Eastwood couldn't pull off.